She smiled at the table, but in the corner of the room, someone's world was quietly collapsing, and nobody saw it coming. Before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed to Talent Zone Updates, because stories like this don't just entertain, they expose the truth behind the drama everyone thinks they understand. It started like harmless reality TV tension, the kind viewers expect to scroll past with popcorn in hand. But within hours, alliances would shift, friendships would fracture, and one woman would be labeled a snake, while another would be fighting battles no one even knew existed, and at the center of it all was Kim. Kim wasn't trying to start chaos. At least, that's what she told herself. She was trying to figure out her feelings. Trying to figure out attraction. Trying to figure out trust. But sometimes, when you're navigating your own emotional confusion, you accidentally ignite someone else's fire.
Don't forget to subscribe for more tea. Now let's get back to the drama.
On paper, everything looked normal. A group of friends, romantic entanglements, unresolved feelings. But beneath the surface, there were insecurities stacked like dominoes, just waiting for one push. Sophie had already been on edge. Her relationship with Pedro felt fragile. She believed she was being judged, misunderstood, and in her mind, one name kept coming up: Liz. Sophie was convinced Liz had been speaking negatively about her. She felt that Liz's words influenced Pedro. That Pedro began distancing himself because of things he heard. And once that idea took root, it became truth in Sophie's world, regardless of evidence. The confrontation didn't happen calmly. It never does. Voices rose. Emotions escalated. Sophie accused Liz of going behind her back, of planting doubt, of creating division, and Liz, stunned, tried to defend herself. But when someone believes they've been betrayed, logic rarely wins. What made it worse was that Sophie refused to see her own part in the situation. Even though she admitted she wasn't fully ready for a relationship, even though she had moments of uncertainty, instead of acknowledging that complexity, she placed all responsibility on Liz. In Sophie's narrative, Liz was the villain. But reality rarely fits into such clean labels. As tensions exploded, Julia stepped in. Julia wasn't looking for drama. In fact, she seemed exhausted by it. She tried to mediate between Sophie and Pedro, gently suggesting calmer conversations, encouraging accountability on both sides. She wasn't choosing teams. She was trying to lower the temperature. But Julia was carrying something else, something no one expected. During the trip, her behavior had shifted. She seemed more reserved, more reflective. Sophie interpreted it as distance. But there was a reason. And when Julia finally shared the news, the energy in the room changed instantly. She was pregnant. The announcement hit like a quiet thunderclap. Sophie froze. Suddenly, Julia's emotional shifts made sense. The fatigue, the sensitivity, the new boundaries. It wasn't rejection, it was transformation. For a brief moment, the group felt united. Surprise replaced suspicion, but reality quickly returned, because Sophie was still hurt, still defensive, still convinced Liz had orchestrated her emotional discomfort. And Liz, she wasn't just dealing with friendship drama. Behind her calm expression was a history no one truly understood. In a private conversation with Via, Liz opened up. Not dramatically, not for sympathy, but honestly. She revealed her ovarian cancer diagnosis. She spoke about a miscarriage. About heartbreak that didn't make headlines. About nights filled with uncertainty and fear. These weren't stories she broadcast for attention. They were wounds she carried quietly. And when she shared them, Via responded with empathy. Not interrogation, not judgment, just support. That contrast mattered, because while Liz was sharing vulnerability, Sophie and Julia were focused on interpersonal accusations. Meanwhile, Liz was navigating health challenges that would reshape anyone's outlook on life. It reframed everything. Liz wasn't operating from malice. She was operating from survival. And yet, within the group dynamic, she felt increasingly isolated. What made it harder was that Kim's presence added another layer of complexity. Kim was exploring a potential connection with Joe. On their date, Joe was attentive, kind, emotionally available. There was no visible red flag. No dramatic moment, just conversation, laughter, normalcy. But Kim struggled internally. Attraction isn't always logical, trust isn't automatic. And Kim had been navigating complicated dynamics with Jamal and Josh, balancing playful energy while protecting her independence. Joe represented stability, and stability can feel unfamiliar when you're used to intensity. Kim appreciated the date, she respected Joe, but when it came time to decide about a second date, she hesitated. Not because Joe did anything wrong, but because something inside her wasn't aligned. She chose not to continue. On the surface, that decision seemed simple. But in reality, it revealed Kim's deeper struggle with vulnerability, with commitment, with emotional readiness. Meanwhile, tensions between Sophie and Liz continued simmering. Sophie felt abandoned, emotionally unsupported. She believed Pedro was pulling away because of external influence. But what she didn't fully confront was how her own reactions may have contributed to distance. Relationships don't unravel from one comment. They unravel from patterns. Still, Sophie doubled down. She labeled Liz as the problem. And the word, snake, started circulating in conversation, not necessarily as a literal accusation, but as an emotional symbol. A betrayal, a perceived backstab. The irony was heavy, because while Sophie was accusing Liz of manipulation, Liz was privately fighting health battles and processing grief. While Sophie felt targeted, Liz felt alone. And then came the moment that shifted everything. Via, who had been observing quietly, spoke up. She didn't attack, she didn't escalate. Instead, she defended empathy. She acknowledged Liz's vulnerability. She pointed out the courage it takes to disclose illness and trauma. She highlighted how easy it is to misinterpret someone's behavior when you don't know their full story. That perspective didn't erase conflict, but it reframed it, and slowly, viewers began to see something deeper than friendship drama. They saw miscommunication layered with insecurity. They saw emotional immaturity colliding with real-life hardship. They saw someone refusing accountability because accountability feels like loss of control. And they saw someone else trying to survive while being misjudged. The emotional peak arrived when the pressure became too much. Sophie broke down. Tears came not just from anger, but from feeling excluded. From feeling unsupported. From believing she was losing Pedro. Liz cried too, not because she was guilty, but because isolation hurts. Being misunderstood hurts. Being labeled without being heard hurts. Two women, both crying, both feeling abandoned, but for different reasons. Julia watched quietly, carrying her own new reality of impending motherhood. Her pregnancy wasn't just news, it symbolized change. Responsibility, a shift in priorities. She wasn't stepping away from drama to avoid it. She was stepping into a new chapter of life. Kim, meanwhile, seemed detached from the intensity. Her romantic storyline was quieter, but still significant. By declining a second date with Joe, she demonstrated that emotional readiness matters more than external approval. She wasn't choosing chaos, she was choosing clarity. But here's where the biggest twist unfolds, not in a screaming match, not in a shocking betrayal, but in perspective. Because the real turning point wasn't about Liz speaking negatively. It wasn't about Kim's date. It wasn't even about Sophie's accusations. The twist was understanding that everyone in this circle was operating from unhealed experiences. Sophie's defensiveness likely stemmed from fear of abandonment. Liz's guardedness came from trauma, cancer, miscarriage, heartbreak. Kim's hesitation reflected internal uncertainty about trust and connection. Julia's emotional shift was influenced by pregnancy, a life-altering transformation. And Via's calm support revealed emotional maturity that contrasted sharply with reactive behavior. Once you see the whole picture, the snake narrative starts to dissolve. Because real life isn't scripted villainy. It's overlapping pain. Still, reconciliation isn't automatic. Sophie may still feel hurt. Liz may still feel misunderstood. Trust takes time to rebuild. And apologies require humility. But what this situation truly revealed is something universal. When we don't have full information, we fill gaps with assumptions. And assumptions can destroy friendships faster than facts ever could. Kim's storyline reminds us that romantic decisions aren't about impressing others, they're about internal alignment. Sometimes choosing not to continue is an act of self-awareness, not rejection. Julia's announcement shows how life can change quietly in the background while drama steals attention. And Liz's vulnerability proves that strength isn't loud, it's honest. As the dust settles, the group stands at a crossroads. Will Sophie reflect on her role in the conflict? Will Liz find continued support outside the friend group? Will Kim eventually find a connection that matches her emotional pace? And most importantly, will they choose understanding over accusation? Because in friendships, it only takes one story to be misunderstood, and one conversation to change everything. So here's the real question. When emotions run high and assumptions feel convincing, are we brave enough to ask what we might be missing, before we decide who the villain is?
What do you think? Comment below. Thanks for watching and I will see you in the next one.